My hot take is that artificial intelligence, or especially the large language models that we see today, should be either under public ownership or they should be completely transparent. Right now, these things are black boxes. And at the moment, the companies making them are sort of saying, well, this is important for humanity. These things are incredibly powerful. We think there's only about a 10% chance that it's going to, make us all subject to the robot overloads.
Hello and welcome to another episode of One Night in Product Hot Takes Edition, where I speak to one person about one thing, get straight to the point and find out what's on their mind. This is the second of a three-part series of AI hot takes to share with you, so stick with us over the next few days. And if you've got your own hot take, go over to onenightinproduct.com/hot and grab a time and let's chat. Anyway, some advance warning for any video viewers. Had a lot of problems with my camera recording on this one, but don't let that put you off subscribing to the YouTube channel for future videos where I promise that the camera work will be a lot better. Anyway, without further ado, here's Bjarte Rettedal's hot take. All right, so we have our next contender stepping up to the plate. What's your name? Where are you based? What do you do? And what's your hot take?
My name is Bjarte Rettedal. I am based in London, UK. I'm a UX designer just starting out after 20 years in advertising photography. My hot take is that artificial intelligence, or especially the large language models that we see today, should be either under public ownership or they should be completely transparent. That's it.
Okay. So what does being transparent mean to you? Because there's obviously this, I get kind of where you're coming from, but there's this whole point with the large language models that they're kind of functions of all of their data that's been fed into them. And as far as I understand, it's actually quite hard to be fully transparent because they're just so big and so complicated. So what does transparency mean to you?
It means that you have ability to sort of lift the hood and look at the parts. So it's not that everyone is going to be able to identify everything, but you might have someone who's, you have a mechanic and someone might be an absolute expert on brakes and be like, hey, this thing here is problematic. That's going to overheat. That's going to make you, slide out and burn and die. So basically, right now, these things are black boxes. And at the moment, the companies making them are sort of saying, well, this is important for humanity. These things are incredibly powerful. We think there's only about a 10% chance that it's going to, make us all subject to the robot overloads. So in any sort of other kind of product, there will be some sort of oversight. So you have three problems with this. First of all, is that if it's anywhere as powerful, then there's a problem with, is it dangerous? Do we know? How can we possibly know? Second thing is that if it's that important, shouldn't we all have sort of better access to it? Because in the end of the day, it's all our our copyrighted material. It's our thoughts, it's our communications online that's basically enabled this technology. And the third thing is that, again, with this kind of power, so politically, if these models and these companies running these models get so big and powerful, the political implications, their power on the world stage is sort of unprecedented, and it's bigger than most governments. You can argue that, Google can, if Google had bad intentions, the power is immense.
So if we accept those all as objections, I guess one of the the things that kind of come back, because you kind of have your AI boosters and your AI doomers, right? You've got these two sides of the argument. Some people are saying some of the same things as you, and I've definitely listened to some podcasts with some people saying that, look, there's a sort of 99% chance that the human race is going to fall apart within the next few years and we're all going to die and be turned into glue. Now, other people that just sit there saying, well, look, this is absolutely not going to happen. It's all fine. You're just panicking. The benefits outweigh the risks. So do you think that there's any case for the benefits do outweigh the risks and it's just a case of waiting and seeing? Like, what's the worst that you think could actually happen?
I do think that the risks are probably kind of quite exaggerated, and I think that's also in the interest of the people producing these models, because if it's that dangerous, it means that it's extremely powerful. So it's good for selling the product, basically. But at the same time, you can say that even if it's not that dangerous, like how do we know? So say if you wanted to develop a fantastic new sort of food supplement, some vitamins, it's going to be great. There is a framework there to check that that it's safe and everything like that. And I mean, in pharmaceuticals is quite a good sort of comparison to this, is that most of the science is done at universities. It's done for public good. It's completely transparent, and then it moves into private companies who develop these sort of new discoveries into medicine. But they are regulated by a very, very strict framework, and there is people who can go in and see this is not safe. If you do any sort of testing on the public, there is very stringent guidelines on that. If you break that, you're going to be shut down. So you can sort of compare this again. It's like, the basic research for this is all of our common knowledge put onto the internet. So that's sort of the public component thing. That's with the universities. It's like the base thing is actually produced by the public. So, and now you have private companies that are now looking to benefit from that. And in that process, in most countries, you do not have, unfettered sort of ability to do whatever you want with it. There are guidelines, and the same thing is, when it comes to like the further development of it. If it is anywhere as powerful as people claim, both the good and the bad of that needs to be sort of assessed by the public. That means that it's going to be more people being able to have a look at it, and also more people being able to contribute to it in a positive way.
So what does looking at it and having that oversight mean to you? Because obviously, person on the street, they're not going to be able to do too much with that unless you just happen to pick up like a cutting edge AI scientist or data engineer or something like that. Like, so there's only a certain number of people that if they did get the chance to look under the hood, could actually even do anything with it in the first place. So what does that oversight look like to you? And what do you think the principal mechanisms of it would be?
Well, again, I think that you can say the same about, pharmaceuticals, because...
Well, yeah, but like I can't go out to someone on the street and say, hey, look at this drug. We see what happens with the people, for example, with the COVID vaccine. All these kind of armchair scientists sitting there saying that they all of a sudden understand all of the ins and outs of efficacy and all of the things that do or don't happen and the side effects and all these kind of scare stories and anecdotes. Like, is there a risk that if you make it too open that you just invite that kind of commentary instead?
Well, to be honest, I think that by keeping it completely shut and sort of this black box kind of thing, you have, I think the people who comment a lot on COVID online, they have as much knowledge of the COVID vaccine as most people have about the big, large language models. And the point here, and the reason I bring in pharmaceuticals, is that this kind of rigid, stringent sort of system of monitoring and basically regulating the pharmaceutical industry was done politically in every sort of big country in the world. And we don't say like we do now. It's like, I think the big tech companies has kind of bullied lawmakers, especially in America, with sort of these video clips of senators who are unable to open their emails, and bullying them, saying like, well, you don't understand this. How could you possibly regulate this? The thing is, like, we don't expect our lawmakers to be high-end scientists in sort of medical doctors and physiologists to be able to regulate the pharmaceutical industry, because they rely on experts. And there are experts that are not working for Google and not working for Meta, for instance, who have a lot of knowledge and can sort of identify potential problems within these models if they had access.
But what does then that oversight look like? Like, what do you expect these people to do? Let's assume that they get access, they can go into it, they can look at it, they can see what it's doing, they can maybe spot some problems or whatever. Like, what are they then going to do? Are they going to compel people to change them? Are we expecting that anyone can kind of contribute to the training corpus or get things retrained, get stuff taken out? Because there's also this huge problem with basically copyright infringement and all of the like the prior art that's been put into there that people are complaining about as well. Like, do you see it as deeply involved as being able to kind of go in there and sort it out yourself? Or do you think that these companies are still going to maintain basic ownership?
Well, the ownership in terms of a hot take is obviously is a bit sort of tongue in cheek with saying that it should be publicly owned. At the same time, it's like there are plenty of people who has the capacity to identify potential problems, and there's people who are better sort of resourced than me in terms of setting up a monitoring system or a sort of oversight committees, etc., and finding the right people for that. What you have right now is that, which you're probably going to have more and more of, is to have that sort of drip from people who've been fired from some of these companies who are going like, you won't believe what we were doing. We stole all of this material and we just put it in there. It's fantastic. That's how we're going to see all the problems. You're going to have some whistleblowers. So like, I think that it's just the same as with sort of other complex systems like physiology, like medicines. Like, if we don't know that it's safe, or if we don't know that it's very, very closely to safe, we don't start testing. We don't start human testing. And we don't release things on a market. Yeah, it might slow things down, but I'm quite happy being able to go to the pharmacist and know that I'm not going to get poisoned. So, I mean, I'm kind of thinking this. I mean, the potential of this being very dangerous. It's the same as with medicine. Some things are extremely dangerous. Most things aren't. But we still need people to be able to go in and say and identify the difference. And this is dangerous. Well, you should be a bit careful with this. And this one, that's fine. Knock yourself out. Paracetamol. But if it's enough, it'll kill you.
But do you take any heart from the fact that, well, obviously there are open source models out there. Facebook or Meta have just kind of come out with their new Llama version, which at least has some free versions or open source versions that people can take a look at. And I guess that's been the case for a bit, but you still also have the people on the other side, OpenAI, completely betraying the open in their name by not opening any of their stuff up. And I read some article the other day, it was like, it's funny that Facebook are the ones that are, or Meta are the ones that are kind of living up to the promise of the openness of it all. But do you see that as being a super positive step, or do you think that it's going to take regulation and legislation to try and get this stuff actually under control?
Well, I do think that there is going to have to be some regulation. I do think there has to be some legislation, because in the end of the day, if Meta comes out and say like, hey, we open up things, it's a bit like, here's the hallway where we produce this stuff. You can go into door 8, 1, 2, and 3. Don't go into number 4, but 5 and 6 is okay. You go into 7, but you might have to wear, a hazmat suit. That's so. Then we're going to start wondering what's in between door number 4. What's the stuff that they're showing us, and what's the stuff that they're not showing us? And I think that it's fairly uncontroversial to say that Meta has had certain issues with, what they do and what they say. Some discrepancies there before. So, I mean, there is an awful lot of money being used to develop these models. There's an awful lot of money that people are putting online for that. I do think that, yes, I understand that, obviously you want the return on that investment. But what's the powers you're going to have? after that. So can you, it's always been a principle that like, well, you got to vote. I mean, obviously in America with like, campaign finance and stuff like that, it's a whole different discussion. But the principle is that like, you have one vote, or you sort of, you can try to influence people, but the political power of these organizations is also growing extremely big. So if you thought like things like owning Meta or Google was big, if these models are as powerful as they claim, that's going to be extremely, extremely more powerful, and it's going to concentrate even more power on fewer hands.
Well, that's a terrifying look into the future, but until we get there, and while we still got time, where can people catch up with you after this if they want to talk to you more about this stuff, find out about your UX work, or just generally have a chat?
The easiest thing is probably just to look me up on LinkedIn. It's Bjarte Rettedal, and it's probably quite an easy name to find on LinkedIn if you spell it correctly. I don't think there's a lot of us out there. So if you connect on LinkedIn, and I love having these conversations. It's always interesting. You always learn something new.
Well, there you go. Something that we can all aspire to. Well, thank you very much for your hot take.
Thank you very much.